To shape policy, to help a town, to steward a river, takes collective action, such as on the Skagit River, where our closing story plays out. The Skagit begins up in Canada, flows through Ross Lake, under the magnificent ramparts of the North Cascades National Park, through Down Valley Forest, through Mount Vernon, to a fabulous estuary and farmlands near Le Conner. And we've all visited them, and the tulips especially this time of year. The Skagit is a massive river, known for its abundant salmon runs. This river alone produces roughly half of all wild Chinook salmon in Puget Sound, critical to the survival of the orca. The Skagit has long been stewarded by indigenous peoples, today represented by the Sauk-Suiattle, the Upper Skagit, and the Swinomish tribes. The efforts to save the Skagit are epic, its relative health a dividend from the work of many. Forterra is now going to pitch in and do our part to help solve a particularly difficult problem, a problem that has persisted since settlers built the town of Hamilton, right where the Skagit's high waters want to go, all the way back in 1872. The floods have been bad and are bound to get worse as our climate warms. To tell this story, please welcome Brian Cladoosby, chairman of the Swinomish Indian Tribal Community and immediate past president of the National Congress of American Indians. Chairman, thank you. And please also welcome Hamilton Town Mayor Joan Cromley. Thank you for coming in here today. I know both of you had to travel far to get here. Chairman Cladoosby, what should everyone know about the Skagit River?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Forterra for allowing me to be here with you today. And we refer to the Skagit as the magic Skagit. The magic Skagit. And when you look at the Skagit River and you look at all the river systems on the West Coast, it is the third largest river system on the West Coast behind the Sacramento and the Columbia River. So in 1855, my father's great-grandfather signed the Point Elliott Treaty, and in that treaty, it guaranteed us to always be able to have salmon. Salmon's been a part of our culture since time immemorial. And I'm not sure how many of you know this amazing fact, but out of all the river systems in the lower 48, there is only one river in the lower 48 that has every species of wild salmon still spawning in its tributaries, and that's the Skagit River. It should be everyone's goal in this room to be able to think about 7 generations forward. When you think of the 7th generation concept, we pray that one day, one of my descendants, one of these descendants, will be up on stage here saying that we've done everything we could to protect the Skagit River, and it's the only river in the lower 48 that still has every species of wild salmon still spawning in its tributaries. So we need to be proud of that. We need to do everything we can to maintain that. And we will work with anybody and everybody to ensure that that goal can be achieved. Unfortunately, in 170 years, 75% of the estuary habitat on the Skagit has been diked for farming and flood control. All that estuary used to provide what we call hotels for the little fingerlings coming out of the Skagit River. And with 75% of the habitat diked, taken away, it's incumbent upon us in the next how many years it takes to try to reacquire as much of that estuary habitat that we can. And so it's with leadership from Mayor Cromwell and Forterra and the Swinomish tribe and others. It takes a team. It takes leadership. It takes commitment. Swinomish has been working with the town of Hamilton since 2006 to try to make this plan a reality. It's not a matter of if, but when the next flood is going to occur. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, just put out a report that says because of rain, in the next year, they're looking at $84 billion in losses in the United States. $84 billion in losses because of rain, through rainstorms, through hurricanes. And so when you look at that figure, and I'm thinking to myself, it's not a matter of if, and when you look at these 100-year and 500-year floods in the Midwest, they're coming every other year now. And so it's not a matter of if Hamilton is going to flood again, it's a matter of when. And I can tell you this, that in our lifetime, we will once again see the Skagit River inundate the Skagit Valley. You know, when the settlers first came here about 170 years ago, the story has it that the settlers asked the natives, where would be a good place to build? The natives pointed to a mud line of these trees, says, build above that line right there. Unfortunately, not everyone took the advice, and we're here today to work with Hamilton to ensure that their lives can be as safe as possible. So I'm just glad to be here with you, just to give you a little insight on the importance of the Skagit to the Native Americans and what it's meant to us to be able to live on the magic Skagit.
Mayor Cromley, tell us about the history of Hamilton and how the choices of the past affect you today.
Hamilton was started in 1872 on the banks of the Skagit River that connected it to the rest of the valley. It quickly grew to one of the largest communities in Skagit County, actually vying for the county seat when the county was formed from Whatcom County. An East Coast paper actually touted Hamilton as the new Pittsburgh of the West, with a mountain of coal and a mountain of iron. Literally, their Iron Mountain and Coal Mountain are right across the river from where we are. Putting the town right beside the river had its logic in that day, because the rivers were how people and goods moved around. The roads were poor to non-existent, and the railroads still hadn't come through yet. They didn't pay attention to the fact that tribal communities didn't build anything on the banks of the river, and they soon learned why. The area floods on average every 3.5 to 5 years, sometimes with more than a foot of water in homes and businesses. In 2003, we had 5 feet of water in the middle of town. You might ask why people don't just move. Well, some have. When the mining and the logging went away, the population went from a total of about 1,500 in the 1880s to about 300 in 1940, and we haven't grown much since then. People stay because they have deep roots in town or because they don't have the money to move. Families that have been there for generations own property, but the property isn't worth much because it's in floodplain. Some of us stay because it is beautiful. It's an incredible place. So after a flood, we dig ourselves out and we move forward. There's an incredible grit and strength to Hamilton people. It's exemplified by the previous mayor, Tim Bates, who's in the picture. That's him on the tractor. The kids stayed behind to help a neighbor move farm equipment. Their house was raised, they thought they'd be fine. They went to bed, woke up in the morning with the water already up to their back deck. Tim came through with the tractor, managed to save the day. But it can't go on. Hamilton's slowly dying, and the next big flood could wipe us off the map. We can't build major dikes like the other cities on the Skagit have because of our location. We had the river on one side and Carey Slough on the other, which runs right through the middle of town. Water literally surrounds us. As to the future, government restrictions have kept us from building in the floodplain, which is a good thing. But it's also kept us from being able to shift away from the river. It took decades of paperwork and struggle, and with the help of the Swinomish and a bunch of other partners, we were able to get an urban growth area approved that's actually outside of the floodplain. So that's what's good. We've got that. Now we need to be able to move on that.
Chairman Cladoosby. Indigenous people have lived on the Skagit since time immemorial. What would it look like if we got it right at Hamilton with the Skagit?
Once again, like I said, it is very important that we look at trying to do as much as we can to recover the estuary areas that were lost over the last 100+ years to diking and farming and development. And so this is just one step in the right direction for us to be able to accomplish what we've been working on for a number of years, is to be able to reacquire that estuary area where the town of Hamilton sits, and to be able to get Hamilton in a place where they feel safe and secure for their kids, their grandkids, and the 7th generation, because, you know, Hamilton is an important part of the fabric of our community, and it's just like our body, you know, it's just like you cut off your arm and, you know, life's a struggle. You know, we need every part in Skagit County to be vibrant and healthy and whole, and Hamilton is a big part of that. And so, you know, this is just one step in the direction of not only getting them to a place of safety, but also reacquiring the habitat that was lost 150 years ago.
Mayor, what would the Hamilton of your dreams look like?
Definitely a place where we can help people move out of the floodway and away from the harm. A sustainable new community that carries both a strong sense of its history and the best of today's technology to help us be good stewards of the land in regard to water and energy and waste. A place where we can enjoy the river, but let it do what it needs to do. Where we can have a future, like Brian said, for generations to come. I had kids come in my office, teenagers, boys, came in my office a couple of months ago over the winter, because rumors fly fast in a small town, and they were like, what is this about town moving? And I showed them pictures that had been drawn over 10 years ago of what this community might look like in the new urban growth area. They were so impressed and so excited to be able to have a place where they could bring their kids and show them and say, look at all the things we've changed, look at what we've managed to do. We fought for the chance to shift our community out of the river's way so that the section of the Skagit that we share can return to its natural state. We're committed to that shift. We want both our children and the salmon to thrive.
Chairman? Chairman, last words to send us off with.
Yes, I think it's important for us to rely on the newest technologies that we have at our disposal. We need to look at creating alliances. We need to look at making sure that, you know, we look to the 7th generation. I will never get tired of saying that. It's not about a return on investment for us. You know, how many of you are grandparents out there? It's the greatest job in the world. Any great-grandparents out there? You know, my dad is still alive. He's 85 years old. His Indian name is Kelkaltsit. Kelkaltsit was the name that was put on the Point Elliott Treaty in 1855 at Mukilteo. My dad's great-grandfather was also Kelkaltsit. He was the one that put his X on that treaty. So when you think about my dad is still alive, and he's the great-grandfather to my grandchildren, and his great-grandfather signed the treaty, that wasn't long ago. So when you put it in that perspective, in a couple generations, that's not going to be very long. And we have to start thinking, what are we going to leave for them? We got to get out of this mindset of return on investment, 10-year, 20-year. We got to start thinking the mindset of 7 generations. Are we going to leave this? Yes. What are we going to leave to our kids, our grandkids, in that 7th generation? Mayor Cromwell is doing everything she can to make sure that Hamilton will always be a very important part of Skagit County. And by taking on this initiative, this great leadership that she is taking on, the torch handed down to her, like the torch was handed down to me, to ensure that her community will never ever have to again endure with the cleanup of a flood that will come.
Thank you so much. Trying to move Hamilton is risky business. There are good reasons why folks haven't pulled it off already. The cost, the complexity, the difficulty of aligning interests. That's why Forterra is committed to stay in this for the long haul, as a champion for the success of the town and the health of the river. To back up our commitment, we have a big announcement. With the help of an extraordinary bequest from a fellow by the name of Jack Albritton, Forterra is committing $1 million to help the town and the river. To launch our efforts, we've just bought the new town center land on dry ground nearby. And the engineering firm HDR is donating services to help us plan for how to have that town center keep a light footprint on the land. And we're working with agencies and partners to solve for the gap between what a Hamilton family can afford and the cost of a new home out of harm's way. Forterra can take these bold steps because of Jack Albritton's generosity. Because salmon were one of the things Jack most loved about the Pacific Northwest. Wealth Jack wanted to pass on to all of us and to future generations. Mayor Cromley, Chairman Cladoosby, thank you for your leadership. We look forward to working with you in the years ahead.